DraftKings tight end analysis for Week 10. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J Clay. And you know what? We're back. We're back after a little hiatus, a little break because Google Hangouts was just awful for a little bit. So we're back.
Yeah, I still have my dollar that I fake smoke with, and we're ready to go here. I do have a canker sore on my tongue though, and if you've noticed the pods the last few days, I am just struggling to get words out. I'm talking like I just got braces. You know, when you learn how to talk with braces, but like when you first get braces, you like can't talk and your teeth hurt. That's me right now. I'm like, that.
Well, you know what? I think we need to get like a Oragel sponsor, and that could be, he could send you just like, you know how Miller Lite does for Denny? Like we'll have Oragel just send you mass amounts of product.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Hopefully it'll fix it in a few months. Yeah.
All right, looking at cash game tight ends, Jordan Reed against Minnesota for 6,200. Obviously, Reed's kind of one of the safer options, really, regardless of the matchup here.
Yeah, this one's pretty obvious to me. I know Minnesota's been good, earlier in the year, but generally speaking, they really disappointed me last week and obviously weren't very good against the Bears either. As far as the Redskins as a whole, I still think they're not going to do much on offense, but with Jordan Reed on his target share and DK, I think 15 to 20 points is pretty safe, honestly. If you're looking at just players in that 6K range, if you're looking at him in terms of the flex, I just think he's a really good value compared to that range.
I do too. I mean, especially when you look at that game and you think, Xavier Rhodes, Terrence Newman. I mean, those guys are, not guys I really target against. So I think Kirk Cousins is going to be looking Reed's way as usual.
Mm-hmm.
So for a little bit cheaper here, you're looking at Jimmy Graham in a matchup against New England, obviously coming off a big game against Buffalo. What do you like about him?
Yeah, coming off the 2-touchdown game, obviously had been trending in this direction in previous weeks. He's just the main option. I know we like Doug Baldwin, but Jimmy Graham clearly the top option in that passing game, especially with Russell Wilson's health the way it is. Obviously looks healthier, but I think we're going to see Graham be not only the dump-off option, not only the mid-range option, but he's also kind of a deep threat as well. Against this New England Patriots team, they don't really have anyone to guard him one-on-one. They might play zone and kind of try to keep him contained that way, but he looks back. He's Jimmy Graham of old, and 5,300. I'm certainly in on that in a cash game sense.
How do you think that game's going to go in terms of just overall tempo and kind of scoring?
We're supposed to know things on this pod, right?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, I have no idea how this game's going to go. Yeah. Literally no idea. I mean, the thing is, if Russell Wilson had a mediocre game, last week, and they were heading into New England, it'd be like, all right, Patriots are going to roll. Maybe Graham gets some garbage time. Russell Wilson looked back. And if that's the case, the Seahawks offense is ready to take off. We saw how efficient they were last year. Wilson might spread it out more, but when Wilson's on and just dicing defenses, everyone's open. It's just like everyone's open when Russell Wilson gets it going. So Graham's going to be fine, even if they do, start to get more players involved.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Bill Belichick's defense, usually I'm kind of timid in terms of targeting, but this year, not so much. I don't think they're as great as years past.
They're always good at preventing actual touchdowns, but they're always a big yardage team, and that's kind of what they are this year. So I kind of look at Graham, especially on DK, to get, those PPR points.
Yeah, definitely. GPP tight ends, we kind of dive down to that price tier of the mid, 3Ks. Zach Ertz, 3,700, finally getting some targets after last week. You kind of obviously have to see that somewhat continuing, especially in a good matchup against Atlanta.
They needed to see Dorial Green Beckham just drop passes for the first 7 weeks of the season, and they needed to see Nelson Aguilar be completely incompetent, and they needed to cut Ruben Randall, and they needed to make Darren Sproles a starting running back, and do all of these crazy things. And it's like, oh, oh yeah, we just resigned Zach Ertz to like one of the most expensive tight end contracts in the league. Oh, yeah, I guess we should use him. Oh, 8 targets for 8 catches and 90 yards. Oh, I guess this guy isn't so bad. And, I just don't understand what they've been doing. I mean, unless he was hurt and they knew he was hurt, they just weren't putting it on the injury report. I just can't decipher what they were doing, getting Trey Burton involved. I don't know. So I don't know if this is going to continue. That's why it's in GPPs, but I like Zach Ertz's talent. I like his, where he is and what team he's on should be, target central for him compared to the rest of the players in that offense. So at 3,700, I'm willing to take the gamble that it's going to continue.
Yeah, I definitely am too. In a similar price range, you're looking at Zach Miller, 3,600. Even with Jay Cutler back, it didn't really affect his targets and stuff, and obviously a decent matchup here against Tampa.
Yeah, it wasn't a guy I thought of when the week first came around, but as you look at this game more and more, Tampa Bay is just such a game flow team. They're going to speed up the pace. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to move the ball. They're going to fumble and throw interceptions. They're going to throw 50-yard passes to Mike Evans, and then Jacquizz Rodgers is going to break his ankle and fumble, and then the Bears are going to return it for a touchdown. And it's just going to be – this is what Buccaneers games are going to be. It's just going to be wild. And so I think Zach Miller's a main beneficiary there. I know everyone's looking at Alshon Jeffrey, but, for basically half the price, I think we can look at Zach Miller with a pretty high floor.
Yeah, I do too. And I mean, you look at that matchup, I like it a bit. As you mentioned, I mean, the up-tempo pace is really going to help out Miller. And then we kind of dive down into a punt tight end situation here with Lance Kendricks, 3K. He's on kind of my nemesis list, but I still like him this week. But
I mean, he did fine last week.
He was an awesome play. I'm not gonna lie. He did great for what his return was, but it could have been better because he could have had an extra 6 points.
And I just want to throw it out there. Last week, I put Vance McDonald as the punt tight end. I just want to take a bow and say thank you. Do a dab. And
well done,
yes, thank you. It was not a good week, but at least we have Vance McDonald to cheer our sorrows, right? Lance Kendricks, that cheap tight end that you're going to look at. Obviously, CJ Fedorowicz is back, which I'm pretty excited about. But in general, you just look at Kendricks and his targets the past 4 or 5 weeks, and they've steadily increased or stayed and stabilized around that 7 to 9 area. And I just think that's going to be the way they continue as the season goes along. Coming off the bye, Tavon Austin only got 3 touches. I wonder if that's an indicator of future usage. If that's the case, we're going to see more targets to Lance Kendricks. So at 3K, it's something to at least think about. I know people like Brian Quick and Kenny Britt. I think Kendricks is the guy that you really want to look at because I think Case Keenum's really realizing, my best bet is just to dump it off. Like I'm not good, and so I need to just not be good and just throw bad passes shorter so that they have a better chance of being completed.
This week, I mean, we kind of talk about 2 tight end strategies. Is this a week that you might look to use it?
It's just tough when you look at the prices at the top because you need David Johnson. 8,400, not going to kill you for pricing. But maybe you punt, go JJ Nelson at wide receiver, go cheap quarterback, and maybe throw Jimmy Graham and Jordan Reed in there. It's certainly viable in my opinion, but Overall, I think you're gonna have to find value somewhere, and throughout the season, it's just been so easy to find value at tight end.
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think, as you mentioned, the David Johnson, you do have some expensive wideouts that, you could get into your lineups, but, you know, there are kind of value there. I mean, we talked about Darren Sproles. I mean, he's a value running back this week.
Certainly.
So let's going to wrap things up with the DraftKings tight end analysis for week 10. Be sure to head on over to DaveFantasyCafe.com. Check out our great tools and content. If you like what we're doing on the podcast, especially now that we're back together, back rocking and rolling, give us a subscribe and a thumbs up.